Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Faulkner, and we have something very different for you today. When I mention AFTCO, obviously all of us are incredibly familiar with AFTCO and this lifestyle brand. In my opinion, I'm literally wearing my branded AFTCO shirt that says Fuji Rod Components. I'm usually wearing AFTCO shorts or pants and an AFTCO, samurai hoodie or Aerotech hoodie when I'm fishing. I jig with the gloves that they came out with, focused on slow pitch jigging. It's this huge lifestyle brand that makes such a diversity of products early in the game for products for ladies and for kids, which I very much appreciate when I'm trying to shop for my husband. And when I shop for my husband, let's start that one over again. When I'm shopping for my wife or my daughter, not that there's anything wrong with shopping for a husband, I just don't have the need personally. But what a lot of people don't know about AFTCO is that they actually started out in rod building. And they were a tremendous pioneer. As far as I know, invented roller guides, invented the detachable sort of solid butt, the AFTCO uni butt, both straight and curved, and sort of this notion of a ferrule on these heavy duty offshore rods that would stand up to heavy use and made storage easier and everything else. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Robby Grant to talk about this remarkable history of AFTCO and how you guys went from these pioneers in rod building to this industry giant that you are now. I'll toot your horn a little bit. You guys do so much for conservation, right? And so I want to make sure we talk about that a lot. But it's really simple for everybody to say, oh yeah, we like the environment, we try to do the right thing and all this. But it's another thing to materially put your money where your mouth is, and that's something that AFTCO has done. So very excited to have sales manager with the tackle division for more than 5 years, but he's been in the industry for 30 years, since 1995. He is a rod builder. And sort of made his bones designing and building the first really high-end rod series for Shimano, the Crucial series, which you probably remember if you've been around like me. He's been a rep with the SPA group. He's an avid angler, a Southern California marlin enthusiast, but will basically fish for anything, anywhere, anytime. So please welcome to the Mastering Rod Building Podcast, Robby Gant. Okay, so I'm so excited about this one. I have so many questions to ask you. And to me, you're a kind of a heavyweight, big time guest, and that's a lot of fun. But talk to me about how you got into rod building. And I ask everybody who's on that question first. Like, you have a lot of experience with this, and from a design and component selection, all this kind of stuff, building the Crucial series. But how did you get interested in rod building in the first place?
Yeah, so I mean, this is way back. To be honest, I don't recall the actual date or the year when this all went down, but it was a number of years ago. At that time, I was an aspiring professional bass fisherman.
Okay.
And we were, just kind of geeking out on rods specifically built for specific lures or terrain technique,
Right.
just kind of all that general stuff.
Right.
So it was just, kind of, boy, the tip on this rod's really good. The backbone on this rod's really good. The butt section on this rod's really good. So, we were able to take like those three key pieces just to make one specific rod to do a specific thing. And I actually, one of the most fun things that I ever did was like handle design. Back in the 90s, the later 90s and early 2000s, everything was primarily just a straight cork handle.
Yep.
I was able to go, to Japan a few times and kind of see like kind of what they were doing.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Love
Just
Japan.
beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful product that they do. And it kind of inspired me to, like, let's figure out a way to make it better.
Yeah.
So we had, like back then, drop shot fishing was,
Oh yeah.
it was big time.
Right.
And so I took the foregrip of a rod and I kind of dremeled out, you like the Fuji reel seat to where the trigger is and you got the blank touch. Well, I did like a blank touch built into the foregrip.
Yep.
And it was kind of like a, at the time it was really, really cool. I mean, it's
very
ultimate
innovative
sensitivity.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. And then, another thing that I was kind of proud of was EVA or foam grips in the bass world back then was like taboo.
Yeah.
So we basically, and you can do so many cool like designs with EVA and foam. And so we tinkered around and did all that stuff, and then um, introduced a whole line of rods with, EVA handles, split grips, right? That was
Yep.
something that wasn't really being done,
Right.
and kind of like set a trend for a while in the freshwater world, anyways, with those rod designs. And it was just so much fun to see, and see like the acceptance from, my fellow, anglers out there, that they're telling me how much they like the rods and how comfortable they are, and they do what we say they're going to do. And I think from a rod builder's perspective, that's always what you're shooting for, is, you're normally building it for somebody else. And when they
Right.
come back to you and say, hey man, this is spot on, that's where the fun, really comes into play, is when somebody else is enjoying the
Yeah.
tool that you created.
That's why you do it. Yeah, that's it. I love that you use the word tool. We talk about that all the time, and that's what they are, right? These rods are tools, right? And so anything that
Yes.
helps you do a better job and is a better tool is certainly gratifying. Well, that's awesome. So I don't even remember when AFTCO. I mean, so I've been building for 30 years, and the roller guides were already out, right? But this was a pretty, if we go back in the history of AFTCO, right? Because and it's such an amazing story from where you guys started to where you are now. But the roller guides were a huge innovation, right? This is pre-braid, right? We were
Yes.
and even with the ceramic line guide technology at the time, which was mostly Fuji, right? And I'm very familiar with the ceramic side of things, but when you're talking about these great big fish using essentially monofilament lines, right? Like where the heat dissipation and everything else becomes an issue, right? And so the ceramic guides of the time couldn't keep up with, as people were kind of targeting bigger and bigger game and started getting into like the grander size, billfish. Uh, Literally, guys were losing fish because the fish was running so hard and creating so much heat at the line that it would melt this extruded monofilament line. This is pre-fluorocarbon too, and people sometimes use Dacron and sometimes use some different things, but then there was this revolutionary innovation where AFTCO says, "Well, wait a second. What if the bearing surface on the guides just rolls and it's not actually line going across it, and the rest is history, right?" Like, I would love to know how many roller guides AFTCO has sold over the generations, right? But it's pretty special, and I note this, I think, partially because I'm so focused on what Fuji does. It's hard to be an innovator, and the fact that this product was invented, golly, it's got to have been 40, 50 years ago. I'd like to look it up, or you may know, I don't know, but the roller guides have been out there a long time, and they're still relevant. People are still building rods with them. They still use them. Some adaptations, throughout the years, the different line classes, kind of specialized sizes, right? And the Bigfoot guides, the ones that accommodate wind on rollers, the ultralight rollers for like some of the lighter, 20-pound rods and things like that. I know this sort of predates the modern company, but that's a pretty remarkable piece of history for you guys to sort of base your company on.
Yeah, the roller guides, I believe, were introduced in like the late 50s.
I was gonna guess the early '60s, but yeah, I trust you more than me.
And actually, the founder of AFTCO was a guy by the name of J.C. Axelson.
Okay.
He founded AFTCO, which
In
at the time
'58. Okay, you're right. It was
sold for
'58.
Axelson
Yeah.
Fishing Tackle Company, which was AFTCO. So
Ah,
he founded it in 1958, and unfortunately, JC had passed away, and his wife Mary had the company, and really didn't know what to do with it. And at that time, Milt Shed, was a big fisherman, really obviously knew the whole offshore game, and was just a student of the sport.
yeah.
And him and his wife Peggy purchased the Axelson Fishing Tackle Company, and I believe it was like 1973.
Okay.
It's kind of how it all started. So he had a little bit of a jump start there with some guides, but that was a very basic guide at the time, and then really blew it up with, the HDs, the wind-ons, the SHDs, the tops,
Right.
the swivel tops, and everything else to go along with it. And
Tight
then
tops.
what
Yeah.
too with and
Yeah.
then unibutts and all that stuff.
A revolution, man. And I actually did Google it, and there's a wonderful. I should have done this research before I got on the call with you, but there's a wonderful timeline, a heritage timeline that AFTCO has on their website that lists all these dates. And you're nailing them, by the way. It was 1973, and what a great story. I have to confess, I always thought it was American Fishing Tackle Company. I didn't realize it was Axelson Fishing Tackle Company.
So the funny story there, as I recall, is we never really, I don't think Milt or Bill really even talked about what AFTCO stood for. It was just AFTCO,
Right,
and media at the time thought it was American
right,
Fishing Tackle Company.
sure.
So I believe it was like in the late 90s or early 2000s. They finally came out and just said, "Oh, we'll just change it to what everybody already thinks is the American Fishing Tackle Company. So let's just go along with it."
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that started.
Well, and it's so interesting because all these guys, Mr. Axelson, Milton Peggy Shed, Bill Shed, like all these guys that were running the company were hardcore anglers, right? And uh, big big game anglers, right? And sort of out
Yes,
there doing this kind of fishing. And I think that's part of why they were able to create such great solutions was this is their world. They knew it, right? Like they were living it every day. So it's just so fascinating that as the technology evolved with wind-ons or with this all these little innovations along the way, it's pretty remarkable, right? And you guys have just been an industry leader for so long. I just admire that history of innovation so much. And I think it's important. That's because the people who were trying to create the products, weren't marketing folks from Madison Avenue who like, hey, we see an opportunity. They were fishermen solving problems for anglers and solving problems for themselves
for
first. It's so funny.
themselves.
Yeah, Roger Cedars, who until recently, founded FlexCoat and sort of ran FlexCoat so successfully for almost 50 years, and now it's been recently acquired by Foundation Outdoor Group. But that's the way he describes all his products. He's like, hey man, I was a fisherman and a rod builder and I was trying to solve problems for me. And then it was like, well,
Yes.
once I found out solved it for me, I'll sell it to somebody else. So it's so interesting how often that's like the DNA of a really effective innovator. So all the roller guides, like it's to me, it's hard to imagine. There's almost a whole industry of evolved roller guides of different types of straight and bent butts, adjustable butts that really are all standing on the legacy of the AFTCO invention from the beginning, right? And I still, to this day, will build a bunch of land-based shark rods, and they will have a unibutt on them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
make it easier to get in the cart and move up and down the beach and all that kind of stuff. It's what an incredible legacy. What's interesting to me is you guys are kind of sailing along, and you're this top dog in the components, and then I wonder what the sheds would think if they could fast forward and see the company now, right? Because not only do you still have all those things, but I mean, it's blossomed into this like really. I wasn't joking when I said I'm wearing an AFTCO
Yeah.
shirt, and I'm often wearing AFTCO shirts and shorts, and I've tried them all, right? But it's got this same kind of like if people say, well, why do you like the AFTCO shirts? I'm like, well, they're light and they have a good feel in hand. They don't feel too fake and too synthetic. They wick well, they dry well, and they resist stains, and they don't stink as quickly as other shirts, right? Like you go fish for 3 days and a shirt that gets gross or stains really bad or whatever. So it's like, and oh, by the way, I think the retail price point on a Samurai is like $39.99 or something great. So you can afford to have several of them. It's not the end of the world if you tear one up. And it's sort of like everything you guys do is like that. It's for anglers and travelers and successful and solves a problem. Like that's not an easy thing to do. Like talk to me about how the company made the leap from a rod building component company to this huge global lifestyle brand. And like talk to me about you guys got to be doing something right in the product development process because you're not just bringing me too products. You're often sort of like the AFTCO fishing shorts are also like the standard by which all fishing shorts are
Yeah.
judged. The first ones with the right kind of pockets made of the right materials also had a belt loop, has a plier holder. Like that doesn't happen by accident. Like talk to me about this expansion out of rod building into everything. And then how do you guys keep doing what you're doing and innovating the way you do?
Yeah. Oh, I believe that the story goes, Bill Shed was with a buddy of his, and I believe they were just kind of just talking, just
Yeah.
about business and what have you. And Bill's friend was like, what are you going to do to grow the company?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your next steps? And so I believe it was like that same evening after that conversation, Bill went back to his hotel or went home or whatever and just thought about it really hard and kind of came up with the idea of, we're hardcore fishermen.
Right.
Let's look at other sports. There's hardcore baseball players, there's hardcore golfers and tennis
Mm-hmm.
players. And he kind of correlated that to apparel. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
specific apparel built for a golfer, there's specific apparel built for a tennis player. But at the time, there was no specific apparel built for fishermen. So,
Other than waders, right? Like
right.
literally, that's the only piece I can think of, or maybe a wading vest,
Yeah.
right?
So he wanted to create, a line of clothing that was built specifically for anglers. And you touched on it already, right? So it had to have the characteristics of,
Yeah.
quick dry, wicking, the smells, being able, the movements within the shoulders and the arms and the
Right.
legs and the plier
Right.
pockets and the,
Right.
just all the things that a fisherman would want. And so they kind of went through kind of a long process. And they came up with, the MO1, which is the original
The
fishing
original
short.
fishing short. Yep.
And at the beginning, they had, I believe how the story goes, Milt and Bill were tuna fishing. They had some tunas, they were cleaning them, and they had some swatches of different materials.
Okay.
So they took these materials and slathered up all the blood of all these tunas that they were using. And I believe they set them out to let it set into the material.
Yep.
And then they washed them all.
Yep.
And then lo and behold, one of the materials they had, all the blood was rinsed out, it smelled totally fine. And so that was the fabric of the MO1,
Oh,
which
that's an
like
awesome story.
catapulted.
And if you're
That's
not an offshore guy, tuna blood, if something's gonna stay, if they
yeah.
don't resist tuna blood, and you can't believe how much blood is in one of these fish, and it gets everywhere, right? Like the second they come over the rail. Well, see, but again, that's the kind of practical test that only a really hardcore angler would know. Be like, this is the worst thing we deal with is this tuna blood.
Yes.
Let's test based on that. I'd never heard that story before. That's a fascinating story.
Yeah, super cool. So and that kind of just goes to the point with everything that AFTCO makes is it kind of has to pass, the tests.
Yeah.
Whether we're setting out for it to be, the quickest drying or moisture wicking or, stain resistance, just overall durability and longevity. So each, depending on the item, it's got a list of different characteristics that we have to follow, and it's
Yeah.
got to meet those, those goals for us to actually, bring it to production and sell it.
Yeah. Well, as a relatively fair-skinned person whose internal medicine brother has put the fear of God in him about skin cancer, like the day that you guys put the hoodie on the sun shirt, like that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's like the shorts. Like you almost can't imagine being without them once it's done. But somebody had to do it first, right? And what a fascinating, adaptation and evolution of the equipment. It's funny you're talking about there's so many lifestyle brands now, right? There's people who do nothing but make fishing shirts, but that's kind of like that's where the market has evolved. I mean, I guess it'd be hard to kind of put a stake in the ground on this or award a first place winner, but AFTCO is definitely sort of the first lifestyle, what I would call a lifestyle brand, the fishing lifestyle brand. And I know they're common now. We have, you've got all kinds of competitors and there's all kinds of people that have sprung up. But now that you mention them and the original shorts and everything, there wasn't another place to get fishing, certainly not saltwater offshore focused fishing, which gets a unique set of challenges, including tuna
Yes.
blood, right? And getting wet and needing to dry and all that kind of stuff. And that it'll very quickly chafe you up or make you uncomfortable if it, is not the right feel and drape of the fabric and doesn't fit right. Like it totally makes sense, but I hadn't really thought about that. I'm having to rewind 30 or 40 years, but I think AFTCO may have been the very first of their kind to do that now.
I'm
And you
almost
look,
positive.
yeah, no. Now that you say that, it seems obvious to me, but I hadn't really thought of that. And once upon a time, that was the only fishing shorts and pants, right? But it's so interesting to see where you guys continue to go. So I mentioned this in the beginning when I accidentally said when I'm shopping for my husband, and I was shopping for my wife and daughter. But you guys also were early for me, maybe one of the first I remember seeing that had women's clothing and that also had kids clothing. So talk to me about that. Is that a byproduct of the lady anglers in the family getting tired of wearing the oversized, husband shirts, or like, how do y'all think about that kind of development process?
But same, it's the exact same, right? Women have different needs for, what they want to go fishing in. So it's the
Right.
same studies that the product team does. Same thing with like kids, but it's just markets that we need to be creating and building, clothing for. There's lady anglers, and there's youth anglers, and there's, men anglers.
Yep.
And so we're just trying to make sure we're covering all the bases and that everybody's going out with the proper gear, to have a comfortable and enjoyable day on the water.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome because it's not, again, it can be hard. I've got a son and a daughter, both of whom thankfully love to fish. And when I try to shop for Molly James, like, it was easier to shop for Liam my son, than it was for my daughter. And there's not that many choices, but you guys have, and you even see it on the website. It's men's, women's, kids, tackle, right? Like there's a whole kids section, and it's pretty extensive, right? I mean, you got bottoms, you got shirts, you got outerwear, you got hats and accessories, you got all that stuff. Thank you for that, because my daughter always looks brilliantly and perfectly color coordinated with all the
Yeah.
stuff that she's wearing when we go fishing. She definitely puts more attention into what she's wearing and how it all goes together than I do. But she's able to do that, and she's able to have lots of choices because of you guys. And it's a big deal for those of us who are trying to serve that audience, right? So we appreciate y'all doing that. It's fascinating. If you had told me that the angle Shed was going to take to grow the company was move from, hey, hardcore kind of machine metal kind of, you know, industrialized kind of very durable components into clothing, I would have scratched my head and said, hey man, I'm not sure that's such a good idea. But it's worked out really, really well, right? And,
Yeah.
and it makes sense to me now why it did, because they were anglers and they were solving that problem for themselves. Um, and you guys continue to expand. So in the last several years, there's been a real expansion in the tools, right? So certainly the knives. So a good friend of mine who I fish with some. I should fish with him more often, but he always says no because he's got a real job, which is silly. His name's Benny Ortiz, right? And he helped design the jigging gloves, right?
Yeah.
But he was the first one to put me on the fillet knives, and he's like, "Hey man, you got to try these fillet knives. They're different. It's a really good fillet knife." And they're excellent. And again, if you cut enough fish with a bad knife that doesn't stay sharp, that frustrates you, that corrodes, then it makes sense that you would create a better fillet knife. And now you guys, like, my favorite fluorocarbon for slow pitch jigging is the Psycho Pro. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Which you guys have made in Japan to your specs, extremely hard, extremely clear, extremely abrasion resistant. Like, it's a really, really good fluoro product. I guess the secret is it does, as long as what you're making is the best of its kind, there's a place for it, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
It's interesting, the evolution. You guys also, I have to give you a big thank you at ICAST. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Given that I work with Fuji, given that I'm a very avid slow pitch angler, one of the things I started trying to understand and took very seriously for the first time in my life was fish handling and fish care, right? And starting to
Hmm.
think a lot more about, hey, if we're going to take this kind of a considered kill, right? An ethical, if we're going to take this fish's life, then we need to do it in a humane way, and we need to not put it in Ziploc bags and let it be in the freezer for 2 years and then throw it out, right? Like, that's a total waste of the resource, and we'd have been much better off letting it go. And I see way too many people, doing that. And I had started to hear legend of these things, these fish care techniques from Japan, Ikejime and Shinkejime and all this. And lo and behold, in your booth at ICAST a few years ago is now my good friend Andrew Choi, the director and founder of the Ikejime Federation, and AFTCO's teaching everybody. Like, it has completely changed the way I handle all my fish.
Yes.
My brother fishes fresh. Well, he fishes inshore saltwater and fishes a lot of freshwater. He's very fortunate. He, as a small town Dr. Quinn medicine woman, he gets gate, key access to a bunch of private ponds and stuff like this. And he has some people that let him fish on their ponds, but they ask that he take out everything that he catches because they're trying to manage the pond for trophy fish, and you got to take out so many pounds per surface acre. I mean, this is a very sort of informed, driven by fisheries biologists kind of management plan. But he started doing the Ikejime and bleeding his largemouth bass, and it's made an incredible difference in the quality of catch there. So, like, how did you guys get hooked up with the Ikejime Federation? And was that just sort of one of the things you came across in your conservation focus, or?
Well, it's kind of it's a cool story. I think it's a cool story anyways. So I was relatively new at AFTCO.
Uh-huh.
I've got legendary people that I work for,
Sure.
that, from conservation, sustainability, all that stuff.
Right.
And so I was trying to come up with something that we could do, just bringing us to the next level
Yep.
of, conservation. And it was probably a good 20 years ago. I was in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I was fishing yellowtail,
Okay.
and we caught this yellowtail.
Hamachi.
The deckhand or the captain of the boat took the fish and he put it in a fish hold. It was basically a big giant live well.
Sure.
Kept the fish alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, he, gently nets the fish out of the live well, did the brain spike, and then he starts making these cuts, and he had this wire, and he's just really like precise about everything.
Yeah.
And I had a million questions for this guy.
Right.
And he didn't speak a lick of English.
And no Asian language skills. Yeah.
None. So, and I was with Dave Pfeiffer at the time. And so
Yep.
we're like talking back and forth, like, what is this guy doing? Like,
Right.
we got to figure this out. And so we go home, we go fishing, and we're stabbing fish in the head with something. And we're making these cuts on the fish. And long story short, we were doing it all wrong.
But you
we
had been made aware that there was
Yes.
something out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I recalled, that process, and I thought, well, maybe it's evolved since then. So I kind of got online and I found Andrew Choi with the Ikejime Federation. So I called him and
I
told
don't know
him,
if you've seen his recent GQ article, but we now refer to him as the Asian Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's his moniker now, since that author dubbed him that in the GQ article, and it's a wonderful article. But yeah, sorry, keep going. I have to barb Andrew while I get a chance.
But so he kind of taught me the ropes behind the whole thing, and I got really really decent at the process.
Yeah.
And so I spent a good time just going out and kind of, before we even launched the product, right? I just want to make sure that I could do it well. I could speak to it well. We needed to get all the marketing assets and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of got to the point to where everything's, looking really good. And I talked to Andrew and was like, how do we do this together and not step on each other's toes? And Andrew said, well, you know what? My passion is the commercial side and the culinary side.
Right.
And I said, great, because I know nothing about the culinary side.
Yeah.
And you can have the commercial side. I want the sport fisherman side.
Right.
So he said, great. So you go tackle that. I'll go tackle this. And then we'll make everybody Ikejime,
aware. Yeah.
So we just spent, after that, we got the products and the tools, and I started to do all the different trade shows and, piles and piles of seminars at all the different, fishing clubs. And it was really cool. I recall, like, the first year, our big trade show at the time out here was the Fred Hall show.
Oh yeah.
And I introduced it to a handful of guys, and I did a bunch of seminars at the show. And, I had the early adopters, right? They, oh yeah, that I understand it. I get it. So they bought it. And then of course I had a handful of people that basically said I was just a flat out liar, that none of this stuff works. But, the following year we go to that show, and these guys that bought it, came to the booth and said, hey, I did your seminar last year. I bought all this stuff to do the Ikejime, and you're right.
Oh.
The product is so much better. It lasts so much longer. It tastes so much better. Yeah. Just everything about it is spot on, and it's just continued to grow and grow and grow. And with Andrew, with the sustainability part of it, and this is kind of part of my seminar, is there's no need to go out if you're a regular fisherman, right? If you're going out once a month, you don't need to go kill 5 yellowtail in a trip,
Right.
right? Just harvest one.
Right.
And you can
And
do the
take proper care
ikejime
of it.
process.
Right.
It will last you that entire month. It will
Yeah.
not go bad.
Right.
And so then by the time you run out or starting to run out, you're going
Go
fishing
again.
again.
Yeah.
And you can go harvest another fish or two or whatever it might be. But,
Yeah.
just the days of, taking these fish, treating them like we used to, which was just awful, a
Suffocating
gunny
them on
sack
ice.
or
Yeah.
throwing them on a bed of ice.
Right.
Like you said, like the Ziploc bag maybe, and then just throwing it in the freezer. It gets freezer burn really fast.
Right.
And another thing that I tell people in my seminars is like, would you buy a Wagyu beef steak, top notch, perfection steak, bring it home and put it in the freezer?
Absolutely not.
No way.
Yeah.
Right.
But why is that intuitive for the beef and not for the seafood? Right.
Right. So
All
it's
the
the
same
same thing.
principles
It's all
apply.
the
Yeah.
same. Yeah. And this
Yeah.
is something that you harvested. So you
Right.
should want to take care
Right.
of the fish
Yeah.
and make sure that you're getting the best product possible.
Yeah. Well, it has been a real like journey of kind of learning for me. So I met Andrew in your booth, and he told me all about it, and it made a lot of sense to me that we would do it on big fish, big yellowfin, some of these things like this, right? And so we
Hmm.
started doing that. And it's kind of like the reaction you get when you first, with a lot of captains, when you first get on a boat, with a slow pitch rod. They're like, "What are you going to do with that?" It's like, "Well, no, wait, suspend your disbelief for a second." And
Yeah.
then, I've gotten everything from, "No, don't believe the fish. We don't bring sharks around," to, "We don't have time to do this," whatever. But it was very clear, if you've eaten a bunch of yellowfin, that was the one for me. Was we did it with yellowfin, but then it never occurred to me to apply it to other things. And then one of my good friends, Jorge Polo Navarro, who runs a jigging company called Jig Pro, JYG, I was out fishing with him, and we just caught some very average blackfin tuna, right? And
Hmm.
he starts giving him the business. Like, "What are you doing, man? Like, ikejime, you don't know how to do this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do it. I don't think it matters on a fish that small, right?" Well, boy, was I wrong, right? And so, we did that night. I got it and I understood it and I thought it made sense for a big fish, but I was like, "Oh, it's a lot of trouble. I don't know if I'm gonna do it." And it never really crossed my mind, for no reason other than, I don't know, silliness and ignorance, to think about freshwater fish and all fish,
All
that
fish.
that way, right? And so what we did was, and it was sort of what Andrew would call cuvee. We didn't age them long enough, but we took two blackfins and we gave one the treatment, whole thing, ikejime, bled it, ran the wire, shinkejime, and then another one that we didn't. We literally just bled it. And that night, which is really too soon to get the full effect
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
this sort of like maturing and dry aging process of the fish, which allows you to do when you've sort of turned off all the possibilities for biological breakdown and it just becomes enzymatic breakdown, right? But we side by side, those two fish, they looked different, they smelled different, they felt different, they tasted different. And it wasn't dramatic in all those aspects, but it was absolutely discernible, no mistake. And that's when I started saying, "Oh, wow, I really got to work on this." And then I invited Andrew to go on a trip out of Venice and Louisiana, where we were slow pitch jigging and bottom fishing. And it's fish that I have caught. I couldn't even tell you how many, Robby, in my lifetime. A fish we call a beeliner or vermilion snapper, a small
Yep.
snapper, tons of them, liberal limits. Often, if the red snapper, the scamp grouper or something aren't cooperating, that can be a fish that saves your day. Triggerfish, which I would have already said was absolutely delicious, gray triggers, all these things. We go on this trip with Andrew and he gives them all the treatment and then ages them the right amount and then shows us like, hey, you don't prepare every fish the same way, right? Like there's, and this notion of a whole fish preparation, which was so intimidating to me. But brother, if you've never Ike and Shinke G made a vermilion snapper and then dry aged it for 3 or 4 days and then cooked it whole, it gave me a whole new appreciation for the fish, right? So this notion of, rather than we disproportionately target just a few fish in the water column, that all of these fish have value from the top all the way to the
Yes.
bottom, all different sizes. And if we understand their characteristics and know how to take care of them, and preserve the quality of it. And then on the culinary side, like Andrew's talking about, and he's a whiz. Like I love having him on a trip. He'll absolutely spoil you because he does all the cooking, right?
Yeah.
And he's got
Processes all the fish for you too.
everything, right? I know it's like I'm so spoiled to have him in the boat, but it's I for one, it's absolutely changed my way I think about it. It's changed the way I consume fish. I try to teach people all the time. It has reduced my harvest and increased my intake, probably, right, as
Yeah.
you're saying, like being smarter about it. And that's all because you guys partnered with Andrew and had him at the booth at ICAST. So thank you for that. That's
Yeah.
he may not thank you. He may be like, "Oh, this guy never leaves me alone. He's always." And I'm glad you've gotten proficient. When you see these folks in Japan do it, they almost always use one hole to do, or they very often will use one hole to do the ikejime and humanely
Yes.
dispose of the fish, and then the same hole to run the wire. I have not had good consistent results with that. I'm the guy who cuts it at the tail and breaks and goes
Yes.
from there, which then makes the mate mad at you because they're going to try to grab fish out of the fish box and there's no tail like it normally would be at the caudal peduncle. And they're like, "What are you doing to my fish?" It's like, it's worth it. Trust me, it's worth it. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think like with the Japanese doing the head, shinke wire,
yeah,
it's because they do so many fish cooked whole,
yeah.
right? So they want
They
the
don't
tail
want to,
on
they
there.
don't want the tail off. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, because they want it to look right,
yeah,
right? And then for us here in the States, we hardly ever do whole fish cooks. It's
right,
always fillets.
right.
But yeah, by doing that tail cut and going through the tail, you can visibly see the neural
Yeah,
canal.
yeah.
It just makes it a lot easier. I'm
And
not
you
even
know
very
when
good
you
at going
hit it,
through that.
right? But it's like how many times are we sitting there? Meanwhile, I'm wanting to get back into fishing, trying to go through
Right,
the head. Like
right.
and there's a lady. She's like, she's in Florida. She's a captain. Her name escapes me, but she's a disciple of Andrews and has gotten really good at it too. And she has videos on here's how you do it from the head on a specific fish. And I watched them and I was so excited, and they didn't help me at all, which I think means I'm a learning resistant student. It's probably not the lesson, it's the student, but yeah, I'm cutting tails for the moment, but and the notion that you need a different size wire for different species and different size of fish. Like one, and when you start telling people that, it sounds like you're trying to be a equipment salesman. But it's like, no, actually, like on a white trout, you can't fit this wire that works
Yes.
on this tuna that size. You've got to have a finer diameter wire just because of the morphology of the fish, right? They just don't have the same physiology. It doesn't work, but it's fascinating, and I think so few people understand that that's the only difference between the quality of the seafood, like the sushi you buy in Japan and the stuff we have here is literally a bunch of their fish they buy from the States. It's traveled, right? But it's just the quality of the care and diligently protecting it. Like you said, never put the Wagyu in the freezer ever, right? Any
Right.
step in its life, and regardless of what the FDA says. And it makes a tremendous difference. So thank you for helping to educate me and get me onto that. But along the lines of the conservation, it's one of the things that's so cool about your employer and your company is you guys take it really, really seriously. And I alluded to it before, but this is a serious, especially in a world of tariffs and uncertainty and interest rates and currency exchanges and everything that goes on, to make a commitment like, hey, 10% of what we're doing is going to go to these causes, and to be so transparent about it. I mean, that's got to feel, you certainly strike me as one of the good guys, right? And gals, and one of the important advocates in the industry. Talk to me about that, and how AFTCO got started with the conservation commitment, and talk to me about the kind of stuff y'all are doing today.
Yeah, so it goes way back, and what's really interesting is it goes to show the visionary mindset of Milkshed.
Yeah.
They founded the Mission Bay Research Foundation, which later turned into Hub SeaWorld
Yep.
back in '63. So that was
Wow.
prior to them even owning AFTCO or being in the fishing tackle industry, other than they knew this is what they wanted to do. So they had to start somewhere to help educate and preserve, the fishery, because at that time, and even there's not a lot of people do that, right? So a lot of recreational anglers think that fishing is just going to be here forever. And
Right.
if they don't understand the political side of it and all the things that we're fighting. So I think it became apparent, way back when with with Milt, and then, the 10% pledge.
Yeah.
And that's basically 10% of profits go back to, conservation efforts, whether it be, Coastal Conservation Association, which is a nationally ran
Yeah, big
organization.
one I work with down here. Yeah.
Yeah, we run, I'm actually the chapter
IGFA.
president for LA
Yeah.
South County.
Yeah.
So I'm actually part of that.
No, awesome.
IGFA, ASA, just anything that we can
Center for
do.
Sport Fishing Policy, Keep
Yeah,
America
right.
Fishing. You mentioned the Hub SeaWorld
There,
Research Institute. Like it's a
there's
who's who. And so it's not Captains for Clean Water, B.A.S.S. And it's even though you could argue for a long time, you guys kind of had a bias towards the saltwater. It covers freshwater, saltwater everywhere, basically
everything.
coast to coast. And it's a remarkable amount. Like it was nearly $500,000 in 2024. It was some like 440 grand or something. I think I read, which is remarkable.
Yeah.
And I for one appreciate you doing that, and I worry. I think I try to tell people on this podcast all the time. If you're an avid angler, you need to be worried. You need to be worried about how few kids are getting into it. You need to be worried about how we're advocating for access and clean water and our rights to that water and habitat. And now more than ever, right, wrong, or indifferent, even though the sport fishing industry is growing, like here in this country, it's a lot with kids sports, with screens these days, with all the other distractions, with in some cases, right, wrong, or indifference. So many people I talk to and I ask them, how'd you get into fishing? How'd you get into rod building? Well, my dad got me into it, right? Well,
Right.
what if you grew up in a single parent household, which is more common than ever without a dad? Your mom certainly can teach you if she's an angler and if you have the time and the discretionary income, but it's like, as anglers, we all need to be taking this very, very seriously, at the very least, trying to get others involved in responsible outdoor recreation. Right? I know not everybody can make a pledge like the 10% pledge like you guys do, but it's very admirable. And so, thank you for that, and thanks for all the good work you do with it. And this is also important too. It's not just enough that you give, but you guys, in one guy's opinion, who's passionate about this topic, you give in a discerning way to causes that make a difference and move the needle, right? And there's a lot of good causes out there, but you start to look at stuff like, hey, of every dollar I donate, what percentage of that actually goes to fisheries research or stock protection or meaningful, conservation grants or whatever it is, right? Versus what gets eaten up in overhead and budget and marketing and salaries. And I know none of these, just because they're not for profit, they have expenses, but certainly you guys have put together kind of a cadre of who's who and very efficient recipients of these donations. And it's no doubt it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly does. And it's to your point earlier, it's a never ending battle.
Yeah.
I live in the state of California, which is,
Hey, we all got problems. Don't complain to me.
it's the worst state when it comes to, uh, access,
Right.
and constantly, trying to take things away. AB 3030,
Uh,
um, you know, all the MLPAs that they put into effect. They try to take away our live bait. They try to eliminate our bluefin tuna fishery.
yep.
There's all these things, and if it wasn't, for conservationists or people that really are in the industry that really understand how it
And
works and
paying
operates,
attention and are
and wants
engaged.
and
Yeah.
wants to see a future in it, you have to get behind it. So that's something that I've, talked to people all the time when I've got my CCA hat on, is I always mention to them, hey, before you buy whatever rod and reel, line, lure, anything in that you're going fishing with, research to see if that manufacturer is doing something.
Yep.
And if they're not doing something, I highly
Examine your
suggest
conscience.
you
Yeah.
ask them to start doing that, or buy somebody else's product that is giving back to the industry,
Yeah.
because it's not just a take. If it was just a take, our fishery would be gone.
Yeah.
So that it's just a huge battle that, and it's never ending. But there's good companies like AFTCO. And there's several other great companies out there. I don't want to start naming them, because if I forget
No,
one of
yeah,
them,
sure, it'll hurt. Yeah, but it's great advice you're giving a consumer, right?
yeah,
And not only because your own employer will show really well when they do that, but this stuff makes a difference, especially over the span of decades, right?
yeah, even the tackle
Um,
store you shop from, because they're
yeah,
just as involved as the manufacturer. So,
right.
there's your local tackle store that you go to. Are they Are they giving back? And it doesn't need to be big. That's the problem with a lot of these manufacturers, a lot of these tackle shop owners, or even your average angler, is we don't need. It would be great if we got tens of thousands of dollars from every manufacturer and we got a couple
Right.
grand from every tackle store and a couple $100 from every angler, but
Sure.
we just need something. So if
Yeah.
everybody can just give what they can,
Yeah.
it just builds up the treasure box
Yep.
and gives us the money to go do the jobs that we need to do, which is fight the good fight and make sure we've got access to fishing right now and certainly down the road.
Well, and I try to go to every CCA banquet I can. Anytime I'm on the road and there's one, like that's an organization in particular, like you can go get a great meal, get some live entertainment, have some wonderful live and silent auction items, and you get a year's membership with your ticket in most
Yep.
cases, right? And that's a great way to make a difference. That doesn't feel like I know the one here at the Birmingham Zoo, the Crawfest. It happens, the first Thursday in May every year, and it's awesome. It's like one of the biggest social events in Birmingham, Alabama of the year, and tickets are ridiculous. It's like $50 or something, and you get a
Yeah.
year's membership in the CCA and a great evening and access to all these great prizes and everything. And that's pretty easy. Like we can all do that, right? Heck, that's less than a lot of lures cost these days,
Well,
right?
you would think
That's
that's
less than a
easy.
spool or a reel with braid, right? Like,
Yeah.
come
Oh,
on.
for sure. But no, I mean, it's pulling teeth. I mean, I'm in the middle of it right now. I have my fundraisers October 11th.
Okay.
So we're in the midst of, selling seats and table sales and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you
It
would you
never
would
ends. It
assume
never ends.
that people like anglers would want to support this,
Yep.
and they don't, and I get to fish on several sport boats with just, average anglers throughout the year. Not average as a fisherman, just
Sure.
guys
Yeah, yeah,
on the
yeah.
boat.
Typical. Yeah.
And I'll start talking to these guys about, CCA, and they don't have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's our job, which is great with this podcast, right? Is we're spreading the news on what needs to be done to
Yeah.
get more guys the knowledge and the wherewithal so that we can educate and keep people informed, and so it's not a shock.
Yep.
Like when we had the MLPAs, a lot of people got really upset, and it's
Yep.
like, well, where were you?
Yeah.
Like,
Where were
what
you
did
when
you
we were
do
fighting
to,
this for the last 10 years? Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
now it's gone. I'm sorry, but we're here to help. We tried our best. We lost.
Right.
So now we're going to make sure that we don't lose, and to not lose, we need participation and we need funding.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always, the CCA in particular, when you think about, as someone who loves to fish in Louisiana personally, like in my lifetime, redfish were on the brink of extinction. And now when I take my kids or customers or whoever and go down there and fish, it's like this fish was ever in
Yeah.
danger, right? But it just shows you how important it is and how quickly it can happen. It can happen within the span of a lifetime, right? And look, so that's one great organization who has a wonderful track record. I've been doing a bunch of work with the CCA, and I'm on the board of the state of Alabama. We've got our flounder have come roaring back, and it was basically the CCA and researchers at the University of South Alabama. Like, it doesn't take a cast of thousands. It can be the right people in the right place at the right time who are passionate about and really focused on it. I mean, and look, if that feels too political to you and you're not an organization joiner, take somebody fishing. Take a kid fishing, take a neighbor fishing, take somebody who hasn't ever fished fishing and go show them what it's all about. Just help however you can. It doesn't even have to be a monetary donation or going to an event, although those are pretty easy and pretty fun to go, especially the CCA events. But
Yes.
yeah, you guys have a bunch of chapters in California. It's on my bucket list. One of these days, I'm going to go. I've already committed to go to the San Diego chapter. Now that I have the connection with you, I need to come to an LA chapter. Like, my goal is to hit all these state events one of these days before I die. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, our big event is the Anthony Shea Award, that we do. It's an annual award that goes to somebody from the state of California, or that has helped the fishery immensely within the state of California.
Okay.
And that's our big, like, state, I would call it our big state fundraiser.
Yeah.
And then we also have, every chapter has their own fundraiser, but the Anthony Shea Conservation Award is the big one. And yeah, and then there's a whole bunch of other, smaller fund, like the one I'm doing in LA here in
Yep.
October.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you know, hear it from me as one angler and one person and one business owner within this space. Like, thank you so much for all that you guys do. That's awesome. Um, If we can turn our gaze forward a little bit here for a second, like one of the things I was looking at, and I was like, I'm going to mention when I'm introducing Robby, I'm going to mention some of the, the best at ICAST awards and some of these different things. It's like there's too many to count. Like, it's which year are we doing? Are we doing 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022? Like, obviously, you guys have been really successful. I attribute that to this solving real problems for the angler, right? And so I was a little surprised with fillet knives and some of that, but they're awesome, well done, right? The fluorocarbon, it's as good as it gets for the kind of fishing that I do. Like the seems like the apparel. You've actually really gotten into with the launch of the freshwater stuff. Like there's a really extensive line of cold water. Cold weather apparel now. And I got to tell you, the Reaper hoodie and Bottomland camo is one
Yeah.
of the best duck hunting garments. If you're a duck hunter, and I am, or if you want to go sit on a deer stand, like it's a great. I'm with Gerald Swindle on that one. It's a game changing garment. Like I never ever leave home without that thing. And I usually have one that's like scent proof in a bag, and then one that can be stinky, that smells
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
me, depending on what we're getting after. But so you guys have expanded into the cold weather stuff, which is great for hunting, a bunch of different gloves. Obviously, saltwater fishing and all that kind of stuff. Continue to innovate, and some of the aero mesh and some of the stuff just gets lighter and cooler and better sun protection. Like, what's next for AFTCO? Like, can you give us any secrets or nuggets or things we might look forward to in the future? We just went through a major product release cycle with ICAST. As we sit here recording today, ICAST is less than a month behind us. Obviously, you guys had new shorts, some new clothing, some all kinds of new stuff. Talk us through some of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's what we do. We're constantly pushing the envelope for superior product for the angler, right? So I know like right now there's a whole design team that's working on, new foul weather gear, right?
Ooh,
So that all the different there's constantly new fabrics that are being invented and
yeah,
brought to market and all these things, so they're just constantly building, testing, building, testing, building, testing, all these different things. So I would look to see, or the future would have definitely a lot of that you know coming down the pipe would be the foul weather gear. um
interesting.
yeah, I think just everything that we do, we're just constantly, you're never happy, right? There's
Yeah.
always some way to improve on it. And so that's kind of what, the design team is set out to do is, yeah, this is a great product. Like, now how do we make it better? Right. And
Yep.
so we just continue to push and push and push to bring out the new latest and greatest.
Well, I know I'm gonna sound like a fanboy, but like somehow you guys get it right. You so often get it exactly right, and it's not just feature rich, but not over featured, not gimmicky, not silly, right? Like it just seems like that's the stuff that works, and I always keep coming back to. And I'm probably guilty of buying certain of your shirts and shorts and pants in every single color you make it in. So I don't know whether wish for more colors or not. My wife's maybe within earshot, I would be in trouble.
Yeah.
She's like, "You don't need any more fishing shorts." But it's like, yeah, but did you see these ones AFTCO just brought out at ICAST? Like, these are different. I gotta have them. It's a good
Yeah,
problem to have. Definitely a
absolutely.
first world problem. Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, it's been so fun to chat with you today. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to or mention while we're on the air here?
No, I just, any other information that anybody needs, you can go to AFTCO, AFTCO.com. Like you'd
Yep.
mentioned, there's a whole timeline thing. There's some history. There's a conservation button that shows, all the different things that we're doing for, all of our conservation efforts. What are our pro guys up to? There's a lot of really cool blogs, a lot of cool videos. The whole EKGMA thing is all spelled out on the
Yep.
website. We've got videos and
Excellent
pictures,
collateral there. Yeah.
so you can become proficient in doing the EKGMA on your next catch. But yeah, a lot of really good information there. And then I'd just like to say to all the listeners, we need your help
Yeah.
for the conservation side. So again, if it's $5 a month or $100 a year or whatever you can do, it will go to good use with organizations like a CCA. But if we want to protect this fishery and have it, for years and years and years to come, which I certainly do because I'm not that old yet, and I still got a lot of years ahead of me to go fishing. And I've got my kids that I want to, make sure that they have fishing rights, and hopefully one day grandkids. But if we're not, paving the ground today, our future is not looking good. So we need all the help we can get. And if you like fishing, you gotta support, you gotta help out.
Amen, brother. I couldn't have said it better. Good on you. And thanks for all that you do and that AFTCO does, to, like I said, put your money where your mouth is and be an industry leader in that regard, because it's great work. When working for Fuji, who has a program they call We Love the Earth, and they're very, very focused on sustainability and responsible practices. And when you get focused in on it, you realize it's really not that hard to support someone who's active and engaged and doing the right thing in this way. And it certainly benefits everybody, right? So really admire what you guys do. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on here. And we had to reschedule because I had weather, despite the fact that I paid to have supposedly the best fiber optic high speed up and down cable buried into my yard. Poor Robby, the first time Mr. Gant joined me, we were unable to proceed with the podcast because it was buffering and locking up so badly because of huge storms in the Birmingham area. But the weather has cooperated with us today, and we were able to get it done. So apologies for the reschedule, but thank you so much for your flexibility, and thanks to Casey for her help in getting on the calendar and making sure everything works.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having us anytime, and love doing this, and keep up the good work.
Well, please let this be a standing invitation. If you ever find yourself on the Northern Gulf Coast in what we call the UCLA, the undiscovered corner of Lower Alabama, like in the Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area, please look me up. I'd be delighted to take you fishing, and maybe you can help me straighten out my wires from the front for some of my whole fish prep fish, because now that Andrew's shown me how simple that can be to do the whole fish prep. I had to figure out the scalers. I had to get a couple of fish scalers because I hadn't done that, and it's literally been fillets only for me for a long time. So this whole thing has been a wonderful discovery, and the whole fish prep is worth the trouble. I'm still working on my daughter a little bit, but it is worth the trouble.
Yeah, it makes it fun, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Robby. Really appreciate your time. And thanks to all of y'all for tuning in and listening. Please remember to like and subscribe, download wherever you get your podcast content. We'll see you next time here on Mastering Rod Building.